So hopefully the technology will be on our side from now on. And if I can ask all of the panelists to please turn on your cameras so that we can see those of you who are with us to talk, and we will start shortly. Wonderful, thank you. Okay.
Hello.
Hello. So I will start with an introduction. Welcome, everyone. My name is Ingvild Haugen, and as the leader of the climate group in the Norwegian Council for Africa, it is my honor and my privilege to welcome you all to this digital Afrika Nå event about how climate change affects food security in West Africa. Now, as some of you may know, Afrika Nå, which translates to Africa Now, is a series of monthly seminars that is held by the Norwegian Council for Africa. And each month it's organized by one of the council's volunteer groups. So this month, the climate group has been responsible. And I would like to thank the group members for your wonderful efforts in putting the event together. Thank you, Erika. Thank you, Hilde. Thank you, Sara, in particular. And thank you also to the Norwegian Council for Africa for providing this space. So we are very excited for the panel discussion that is planned for us today. We have a strong panel with us, and I'm very much looking forward to hearing from all of your perspectives on this important topic. Now, before we start, I will just give some practical information. As you have noticed, because of the current COVID situation, this event has had to go fully digital. So we have done everything in our power to prepare for a successful digital event, and we are hoping that technology will be on our side from now on. As you may also have noticed, we are in webinar mode on Zoom, which means that none of you who are watching the event from the audience should be able to talk or show your faces. But we invite and encourage you to use the chat to send in questions and comments during the panel discussion. And we will pick a couple of questions for the moderator to address to the panel at the end of the event. So now I will give a very brief introduction to the topic at hand, and I will introduce our speakers before we go into the panel discussion. Then, as I said at the very end, there will be some time to answer questions that may have come in through the chat. So, as many of you know, the Nobel Peace Prize was recently awarded to the World Food Programme, which has brought increased attention to the work being done to combat hunger worldwide. You may also know that alongside poverty and conflict, climate change is one of the key drivers of hunger and food insecurity in the world. And West Africa is one of the regions most vulnerable to the effects of climate change. So for this event, we ask, how does climate change affect food production and food security in West Africa today? What measures are in play to mitigate and adapt to the effects of climate change? And what measures will be needed in the future? We have a panel of 4 experts with us here today to address these questions. We had a panel of 5, but unfortunately, Knut Eileblein, who is Norway's ambassador to Nigeria, was called away for an urgent and important meeting, so he had to cancel last minute. So we hope that he can join us another time instead. So that's unfortunate, but we would have, of course, have liked to have him with us, but we still have a very strong panel and a very competent panel with us to address the topic at hand. So I'm going to try my best to introduce all of you, and maybe as I introduce you, you can give a wave so that we see who you are. And if I mispronounce any names or if I have misunderstood any details, please interrupt me and correct me. So without further ado, please welcome our panelists to the stage. We have with us Abderrahmane Djere, who is the Deputy Chief of Party for the NCBA CLUSA Primed Feed the Future Senegal Kawador project. This project aims to curb malnutrition by empowering organizations and regional resource partners to scale up the nutrition-led agriculture approach and utilize market opportunities for sustainability. The project blends climate-smart agriculture practices with market facilitation and nutrition behaviors change to influence the systems that enable communities to manage their own food security situation. So welcome. Next, we have with us Josephine George Francis, who is currently the CEO of RJ Farms and Aquarius Water Inc., based in Liberia, West Africa. She is also the first vice president of the West Africa Farmers Organization and the founder and president of Farmers Union Network of Liberia. As a member of parliament, she served as chairperson on the Agriculture Committee. During her tenure, she introduced bills that were passed to develop Liberia's agricultural sector. And she has worked in this sector for more than 15 years, promoting agriculture, women, and youth through advocacy and capacity building. Welcome, Josephine. Third, we have with us Knut Andreas Lid, who is the program director of Caritas Norway, with overall responsibility for the organization's development portfolio. He is a political scientist and has over 20 years of experience from working on food security, peace and reconciliation, and interreligious dialogue. Welcome, Knut Andreas. Finally, we have with us Tewodros Araje Kebede. I'm sorry if I have mispronounced your name. He is a senior researcher at FAFO, Institute of Labor and Social Research. With academic backgrounds in development economics and statistics, he conducts applied research in East and West Africa, as well as the Middle East. His research in West Africa is mainly focused on education, particularly in Niger, Burkina Faso, and Mali. As part of his research, he explores the underlying reasons for school dropouts, including the challenges related to food security and vulnerabilities to the effects of climate change. So welcome, a big welcome to all of our panelists. Finally, we are very lucky to have with us as a moderator, Liv Elin Thorheim. She is a professor of public health nutrition at Oslo Met, Oslo Metropolitan University, and she heads the research group Public Health Nutrition. She's educated as a nutritionist from the University of Oslo. Dr. Thorheim has extensive experience in research and evaluation projects on food and nutrition from several countries in West Africa. She has worked for UNICEF, has a postdoc at IFPRI, International Food Policy Research Institute. She's also worked for FAFO and has been representing Norway in a number of UN meetings on food and nutrition issues. So thank you all so much for being with us today. And now let me hand over the word to Liv Elin to start the panel discussion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ingvild, and thank you for the introduction. And good afternoon, everybody. It's a great pleasure for me to be the moderator of this evening's discussion. And we'll look into how climate change affects the food security situation in West Africa. And you have already been introduced to the topic and to the panelists. And we know that this food security situation in West Africa has been challenging for many years. And now there are several other issues that make the situation even more precarious. So the region, together with other African regions, are experiencing increases in undernourishment, as has been shown in the global food security statistics from the FAO. So to what extent is West Africa already now experiencing the effect of climate change? And what are the effects of the conflicts in several areas of the region, the economic downturn, and most recently the COVID-19 pandemic? We understand the region is going through very challenging times. So we will look into these challenges, but we will also look into experiences and see what we can learn from them, what different actors can learn from each other, and try to look ahead to see
It seems Liv Elin might be having some technical problems. Let's just wait a minute and see if she will be back with us shortly.
Yeah, I didn't hear nothing from the last 20 seconds or 30 seconds. That is technology.
Technology. It looks like it looks like she will be back with us. She has dropped out, and I'm sure she will log back on soon.
Yeah, but
there she is. Yeah.
There she is. Sorry, I think I lost my internet connection again. I mean, this is Oslo, but the last days the internet has been working very badly. At yeah, in my house and many other areas of Oslo as well. So sorry about that. I'm not sure where I dropped out, but I wanted to. I said that I would like to start with hearing some of the experiences from on the ground. And first, I would invite Abdraman to tell us a bit about how the situation is currently in Senegal, and also a bit about how the situation has been fluctuating in recent years. So, Abdraman, the floor is yours. The screen is yours.
Okay, thank you very much, Livelin. Good afternoon to everyone. Before to talk about how the climate change affect food security, I would like to talk about that climate change is a reality, because for some people, even now, when we talked about climate change and is its effect on everything, some people are not comfortable with this. And we need, to me, to show people that it's reality. And so that is why I would like to start with some point that show climate change is a reality in Senegal, and then come to how it's affecting food security. Okay, for we know that in Senegal, we have a center dedicated to the environment monitoring. We call it the Center for Environment Monitoring. And this center made a study and produced a report that show from 1950 to 2000, we observed that there is an increase of 1 degree of temperature in Senegal, in the south part of the country, and 3 degrees Celsius of temperature increase in the northern part of the Senegal. I may say that in the northern part, we are around the Sahel, close to countries like Mauritania, like Mali, and so on. So that is a point. The second point is that flood starts to be more frequent. There is a lot of flood every year, maybe, or every 1 year out of 2, there is flood in villages, in area where there is the sea or there is rivers. That is another point to show climate change is a reality in our country. And the last point I will talking about is that from the last 20 years, we did observe 2 very hard droughts. And the first was in 2002, and the second is in 2011. And this drought bring around 100,000 people in food security and security situation. This is the 2002 drought. For the 2011 drought, it brings around 800,000 people in food and security situation. That is just to show you that climate change is a reality. So then how it is affecting food security in our country here in Senegal. The first point I will talk about is on agriculture. Agriculture, I should say that it is the one of the most important economic sector in in Senegal, because it represents 17% of what we call the PIB, or the gross, what do you call it in English? The PIB. I don't know if someone has something to. It represents 70% of the economy of the country, and it represents also 70% of the employment in the country. So this sector has been affected by climate change. How? We notice that there is a drop of 30% of the production for agriculture for the last 20 years in this country. 30% of loss for agriculture production due to climate change. Why we could say that it is due to climate change? Because the production is linked to, first, the quantity of rainfall, and there is a very, very, very big loss or decrease of rainfall in this country for the last 20 years. Also, climate change did affect fishery and sea. We noticed that the quantity of fish people could get from the sea is decreasing for the last 20 years. And that is based on some studies made by institution or a Ministry of Agriculture or Ministry of Environment, made in 2009. That was for about agriculture and fisheries. There is another sector that has been affected by the climate change. That sector is water resource. The climate change affected water resource, so that there is a very, very, very big decrease of the underground water in this country. So in certain area of our country, to get water, you should go to 20, 30 meters, or in even 70 meters to get underground water. And this is to us due to climate change that affect the quantity of rainfall. And if the rainfall decrease, of course, the quantity of water, the underground water also will decrease. So I will stop by there about what is the effect, what's the impact of climate change on several sectors of the Senegal country. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Abdraman.
I apologize for the bad English, because
we understand very well what you said. I get the message your bandwidth is low, so you can maybe it's better just turn off the camera for a while, and you can turn it on when you want to say something again, or I will ask you. Thank you so much. Josephine, could we also get the perspective from Liberia? What are the main challenges you're facing? Sorry, you're muted.
No, I'm not.
Now
Not, I'm sorry. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
yeah, we can hear you now.
Okay. Thank you for inviting me. And let me tell you about the challenges of climate change in Liberia. Liberia faces significant risks as a result of climate change. In Liberia, we have two seasons. We have the rainy season that lasts up to 6 months, and we have what you call summertime, that's only about 4 months. And now we are experiencing high temperature in Liberia. So we're starting to have serious drought, and irrigation is a major problem for our smallholder farmers. And we presently trying to train the youth and women on agroforestry and teaching them how to use the degraded land, because we have a very large forest, and most of those inhabitants that live around the forest use the forest to produce charcoal. So we're trying to eradicate that and teach them how to use the forest for livelihood, like doing bee farming, doing bamboo products, and to protect the land. And also the degraded land, we're using that land to grow tree crops like cocoa and coffee and different tree crops, and let the farmers do agroforestry to increase their income. So that is ongoing. But because we lack of irrigation and our agriculture sector depends on nature, the rain is so heavy that most of the rivers are flooded. So farmers cannot cross these different rivers to get to the farmland. And now another problem we're having with climate change, because of the hard malnutrition in these rural areas, the farmers, not only the farmers, but a young group, the young Liberians in rural areas are working on family farms, which we're promoting family farms in Liberia. They are migrating to Monrovia because of the changes in climate change. So the movement to Monrovia now and using and working in transportation, and the original farmers in the rural area are getting old, they are aging. So we're trying to mobilize the women and the youth and government to set policies and see how we can develop agriculture and how to build, to concentrate, because we cannot control climate change. It is nature, but how can we work around it for people to continue to be sustainable? Our growing population, young children, about 34% of those children are suffering from major malnutrition. And with the COVID-19 coming and having all the lockdowns, we have state of emergency. People had to stay home, could not go to their farms. It's very difficult as I speak now on the farmers in the rural areas. So what are we planning to do? Especially with the West African Farmers Organization, we are working and promoting the youth participant in agriculture and change the methodology so it can be more attractive to the youth. Liberia's staple food is rice. We consume over 400 metric tons of rice every year, and we cannot produce that. We used to produce at least about 70% of that in the last 10 years, but right now we have importation. So revenue that should live stayed in our economy of 200 million is going out to foreign country to buy rice, because if you don't give Liberians rice, they will get very upset. So even the rice production this year is very low. And WFP had to get support from the International Monetary Fund to be able to feed the population for this season, because beside the climate change challenges and beside the economy, after we have gone through civil war, then we have the Ebola, and now is COVID-19. It is very difficult for the farmers, but we cannot give up. We are resilient and we'll continue to work. And even in the fishery sector, it's difficult for us because of the level of sea level right now for the fishery sector. it's not easy. So I will stop here, and if you have any question, I'll be glad to answer.
Yeah, thank you so much. We understand that it's almost endless, the challenges that you're facing at the moment with both the climate change, increasing temperature, reduced water, and now you're also mentioning the urban migration that we'll come back to with Tewodros. But I thought I would just ask Knut Andreas first, what are the perspectives from Caritas? How do you look at the situation? And what are the main challenges regarding food security in West Africa?
Yeah, thank you. We share the perspectives already given. Caritas works in Niger, in Mali, and in Nigeria. So we have long-term development programs and also humanitarian interventions. So we all work around around food security. The challenges are quite many, and especially in Mali and Niger and northern Nigeria, we also have the conflicts coming into the picture, which is also having an effect. And now with the COVID-19 already mentioned, it's become even more challenging. But what we're seeing is the climate change affects production in various ways. You have the flooding, you have the temperature changes that makes it more difficult. You have the droughts that are also increasing. And you have the changes in the seasonal patterns. And the latter it's a big challenge, which makes it more difficult for farmers to actually plan. So sowing of the seasons and harvests. So that is several challenges that we see. And also in Mali and Niger, the pressure on natural resources is also a source for increasing the conflict. So that is kind of becoming a double crisis. So the one is reinforcing the other. And when the crisis is, or when the security situation is deteriorating, that also inhibits the farmers' ability to reach their fields, which also affects the food security situation. So there are multiple challenges we're seeing in Mali and Nigeria and northern Nigeria.
Thank you so much. Tewodros, could you perhaps discuss a bit the conditions of food security a bit more broadly in the West African context and other consequences of food security that hasn't been raised by the previous speakers based on your research?
Yeah, thank you very much, Evelyn, for the introduction. I think I'd like to start with, as the previous speakers have said, I think all the way from Senegal to Liberia to Niger, Mali, and perhaps even Burkina Faso recently. What we've seen on our work that relates partly a few years ago when we did a study on the drought situation in Senegal, that relates to what previous speakers have mentioned, is the fact that I would like to draw attention to the kind of implications that climate change and induced effects may have, particularly in the region. So in Senegal, what we have observed from the study we conducted there following the 2002 drought and also followed by the 2011, we found that the drought affected households are actually highly likely to send children away from home. So child mobility increases due to the fact that, because of the drought, that also partly relates to what Josephine has been talking about the migration effects of the recurrent issues on drought, flood, and other climate-related issues happening in Western African context. So this really puts a pressure not only in terms of food production, but also its implications would be on parents' ability to raise children in a normal setting, meaning that would lead into, of course, child mobility seems to be a social practice, broadly speaking, in Western African context, but it's induced even more that also more children become at risk as a result of the drought situation that we are observing in the region. But I can also come back a little bit more elaborate on the broader effects of food security in Western Africa, particularly related to the issue of education, so that the effects are not only limited to only production, but also has systemic effects affecting the other aspects of life, including children's capacity to learn and develop as productive citizens.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So what you describe, all the panelists, is a challenging situation. We see consequences, severe consequences of high level of food insecurity. Philippa talked, and Josephine talked about high levels of malnutrition. We know that is the case in Liberia, but also all over West Africa. It has consequences for livelihoods at a larger scale, and also, as you mentioned now, child mobility. Parents are sending their children away for work, and it has consequences for education and yeah, consequences on many different levels. So we have heard now of the challenges that especially the rural population is going through. So I thought we could go over to discuss a bit more the experiences the panelists have with solutions. You have touched a little bit on it before, but Abdraman, I thought perhaps you could start again and share a bit of the experiences you have with the project Nutrition-Led Agriculture. Are you there, Abdraman? I think you were muted.
Let me connect. Yeah, okay, I'm here. Yeah, okay. The context. I'm working in a project that is food security and nutrition promotion project, founded by USAID, of course, and to fight against malnutrition and food insecurity. Dr. Theodoros was talking about right now. We developed what we call the nutrition-led agriculture approach. And it is an approach that consists of trying to find solutions to malnutrition and to food insecurity based on agriculture development. And it consists of, first, while malnutrition is due to micronutrients and vitamin carencies, to develop, to promote in village, in communities, crops that are rich in this vitamin and these micronutrients. In Senegal, we have 4 to 5 vitamin and micronutrients concerned by the malnutrition. There are vitamin A, iron, zinc, and iodine. And to fight again, or to prevent, because before to fight again, we need to prevent these carencies. So we develop and introduce what we call biofortified crops in community agriculture production. And these crops consist of millet, for example, maize, sorghum, potatoes, sweet potato, and so on. But they are varieties or species that are very, very rich in this vitamin or in these micronutrients. And it is not us who are saying that they are rich. That is results from research institutions like ISRA in Senegal, like ICRISAT in West Africa, and so on. We are basing or focusing our work on the research institution results, and we work closely with this institution to get from them what are the crops currently that are rich in that micronutrients and vitamin we could introduce or we can promote in communities so that they can grow them and they can consume them. So that is the first thing we developed. One other thing
Sorry, can I ask a bit as you talk about this, because I find it very interesting. But how was it perceived by the population? Did they want to produce it? Did they want to eat it? There's a lot when you talk about nutrition and dietary intake. There is a lot of yeah, maybe obstacles to make people consume something else than they're used to. So could you just tell a little bit about?
It is not something they do not use to consume. I was talking about millet, I was talking about maize, I was talking about potato. People used to consume all these crops in their area, in their community. So we are not introducing crops that are not consumed. We are introducing
but just different varieties.
Yeah,
but they accepted that.
Yeah, so to make that easy, we have a very big communication component to change behavior, to make people accepting that they are living malnutrition situation, and these crops are solution for this malnutrition situation. I don't know if I did respond to. So, and this communication continue from the starting of the project to the end of the project. And to continue with the NLA, Nutrition Lead Agriculture approach, introducing high value crops, we also develop what we call the promotion of local private sector, individual and groups. What it consists of: to grow millet, to grow maize, to grow everything, population needs, they need seeds, they need fertilizer, they need materials. And most of the time, these equipment or materials are coming from the town, are coming from everywhere. So to get them, it is very difficult, and it is too expensive too. What we did was, okay, how to create at the local level, at the community level, at the village level, people, individuals that are in living with a community, to make them developing services to provide certified seeds, to provide a fertilizer, good quality fertilizer, to provide everything necessary for production to people. So a producer do not need to go to cities to get the fertilizer or good seeds, but they get them in the village with someone who is from the village. And by the same way, we are developing a business, because these people who are selling seeds, who are selling fertilizer, and so are businessmen, and they develop business to make them by themselves being businessmen, and we are creating by the same way job in this community. Someone was talking about migration. We arrived with this solution to make some people staying at home instead of moving to other parts or other countries. The last component of the nutrition-led agriculture is to strengthen the civil society members and organizations, so that everybody in the community would consider food security and nutrition as a question that concerns everybody, instead of it concerns only the local government or the central government, so that there are trainings, there are facilitation to bring all community members in meetings, talking about food security and the malnutrition issues, find solution by themselves and implement this solution. Okay, briefly, this is what the NLA or the nutrition-led agriculture consists of. And currently, we could say that in the north part of the country that is really affected by the climate change, we arrived to make people staying at home and not to migrate to other. And the major achievement I could talk about is the women empowerment. I forgot to talk about it. One of the focus we are making is to fight against malnutrition. We think that women are the first victim, but also women are the most important actors to fight against malnutrition, because malnutrition is inside the household. And in our area, women are playing the central role to feed people, to feed children, to feed even the chief of the family. So we develop a concept we are calling the Groupe Debogale. Groupe Debogale is a group of 15 to 30 women in age of reproduction that are put together in order to train them, to reinforce them in nutrition matters, in food security matters, and to let them be trainers also for other persons, and to let them developing activities such like horticulture, activities like value crops growing, to develop livestock, and so on, even to develop what we call saving activities, so that they can have enough resources by themselves to invest in fighting against malnutrition and against food insecurity. So to be brief, okay, this is what we call NLA, or nutrition-led agriculture.
Thank you very much. It sounds like a very comprehensive and interesting project, which touches upon so many important aspects, and especially that you engaged civil society and work with the women and engage the different parts. I think it sounds very
employment.
interesting. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Josephine, are you here with us?
Yeah, I'm here.
Yes, I think you dropped out a little bit.
Yeah,
so I would like to hear some experiences from Liberia, and maybe more specifically, how important is it that farmers are organized? That because you work with the farmer union, the farmer organization, how important is it that they organize themselves in this situation to fight food insecurity?
Yeah, I'm also apologize. We have bad electricity in my country. So the public lights just went off. So I had to get my small modem to be able to reconnect because I was on Wi-Fi. But, you know, we're talking now about SDG, the Sustainable Development Goals says, leave no one behind. It also says that eradicate hunger by 2030. For my country, we will not be able to eradicate hunger, and a lot of people will be left behind. In the farmers organization, we organize ourselves with cooperatives. And presently, we're building the capacity of the cooperatives and encouraging women, because women always been the breadbasket of our country. The farming region in Liberia is is in the southeast of this country, and that's where the farmers are. Liberia is a very small country with 4.5 million people, but we import everything that we eat. This started after 1980, our crisis. Before 1980, we were self-sufficient. We used to export food, and God had blessed us with everything, but I don't know what's going on. So we organize ourselves into cooperatives, and we strengthen the women and youth, because they are the vulnerable ones that we need to focus on. And agriculture is a business, it's a way of life, making money. It's a business. I'm a farmer, and that's how I get my income. I do livestock, coffee, cocoa. You know, in Liberia, you don't just farm one product, you farm everything. And unfortunately, it's been 14 years when the African governments came together and signed the Maputo Declaration to give 10% of their budget to agriculture. Up to now, my country is less than 0.1%. So the scary thing, when you're in the rural part of this nation, of my country, the malnutrition, young people are dying of malnutrition. And it's a serious problem, and we need to work on it. So presently, the Farmers Union is actually trying to raise resources to do data, to actually see where the farmers are in the entire country. And the COVID-19 was no help to us. And the cooperatives is trying to build the capacity. We're trying to build the capacity to strengthen them. And not only should we just grow food, but try to add value to what we grow, to have some quality. And that's what we are doing now with the farmers. But our focus, we are thinking about the youth, because the youth, they are the future. And if we don't make agriculture attractive, they don't want to work hard. We need mechanization, and using cowsets and hoe, it is very, very hard. So how can we do it? We can only do it too from our national budget, because the agriculture sector is depending on donor funding, and donor cannot do it for us. And we don't have enough resources.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I got a message from Knut Andreas. He would like to comment on something that you said.
Okay.
So
yeah, just on a topic in terms of mitigation and how to mitigate the effects of climate change. Because I think the agriculture cannot be underestimated. In the region that we are working on, I think 75 to 80% of the population depends on agriculture. So it's a massive part of people's lives. And we also see that the climate change also spurs about half of the IDPs in the countries, and these are countries in conflict. So it says something about the scale of the challenge. But it's not a challenge that is impossible to solve, because it's quite easy techniques that are known. You can solve a lot of the challenges. We can use easy things just as priming of seeds. You can use mechanization, planters, harvesters, and different kinds of inputs. Like has a great impact, irrigation systems. But it's not impossible to adapt to the climate changes. But it's kind of the will on how to do it, and have the donors actually to focus on what is most important for those regions. And also looking at, from the north at least, what are the priorities of the interventions in the countries. We see agriculture, it's not on top of the list, to put it mildly. And that is something that we need to change in order to actually be able to mitigate for the climate changes that we're seeing in the region. Much of the discussion as well in terms of migration, we don't, it's in Europe, it's framed kind of as a threat, migration to Europe. That is not at all what we see in the region. It's internal displacement. It's migration from rural to urban. It's from one rural region to a different rural region. It's also spurring the conflicts. You kind of see the typical pastoralists versus the farmers. That is all due to migration and the deterioration of the soil in different regions, which is also spurring the conflict. So it is definitely possible to do something to mitigate the challenges, but it needs political will and also the donors to prioritize it.
Thank you. But Josephine, you said that the very low percentage of the government's money is spent on agriculture. So why is that? As both you and Knut Andreas said, agriculture is the main activity in the country, in all of Western Africa. So why do they focus so little on it when the need is so big, when the challenges are so enormous out there? Do you have any of you have any?
Well, we've been having a series of discussions with government and donors too have been very involved, because in order for us to succeed in agriculture, we need a political will. And I don't know why the budget I'm always at the ministry talking to the minister, and herself is very frustrated because she have a very, very small budget to work with. And our population is growing, and food security, insecurity is very high. So we have to continue the conversation to convince policymakers to help with the donor funding that we get into the country. Personally, what really helping most of the farmers too is because we border with 3 countries, and Guinea and Cote d'Ivoire, and they are our main source of seeds and livestock. But now with the conflict in both countries and the borders closed, it's been very difficult for the farmers that have these common borders with those countries. Very difficult for them at this time. So we hope that the election situation will be controlled so we can be able to go across to the borders and get what we need. Because in Liberia, fertilizer is very hard, very, very expensive. Fertilizer is about $60 for 50 kg bags. And across the border in Guinea and Cote d'Ivoire is about maybe $25. So farmers are going across for the seeds, for the fertilizer, for livestock, and everything like that. Even Liberians try to develop the poultry sector. We cannot afford to produce our own feed. So we need to encourage more Liberians to start focusing and investing in agriculture so we can be able to be sustainable. Because
you can get some tips from Abdraman, who has been working with developing that part of the sector. But I would like to hear a bit from Teodros again about could you give us some more insights from your research and possible solutions, and maybe talk about
it's although it's not directly related to the agricultural production systems, but I think it has also, some of the lessons that we have in the region has implications on what needs to be done from the systems perspective, right? But just to sort of exemplify, I want to take you to Niger, in the Doso region of Niger, in a small village called Wangalkaina. And when we are trying to explore some of the challenges in that particular village out of the underlying reasons for why children are dropping out of school, and we have a community and focus group discussions with community members. And it's kind of interesting because one elderly man has, and we were talking about potential solutions about, the kind of challenges that they face, particularly for children. And during the discussion, I think the notions of, school feeding program came up, right? What about, trying to provide school feeding systems and establishing that within the village, if that is a solution. And then it's quite striking to hear when the elderly man says, if the schools start feeding programs, we the adults will attend school, right? Okay. So that really tells you the extent of food insecurity in Niger, where you have almost 64% of the children in Niger are out of school. And within this context, one of the underlying reasons that we see is food insecurity. And I think the one of the solutions that relates to this is how do we establish relatively better systems to cope and retain children in the school? Because if we don't invest in young children today, as Knut has mentioned, I mean, mobility is not really to the rest of, out of Africa per se, it's within the region. I mean, we find, most children that are at risk traveling to all parts of the region, particularly to Nigeria and all. You have also the danger of them being involved in the conflict, all the radicalization processes that goes on. So there is a formidable challenge for the society itself. So then from that perspective, I think what we are learning is how do we establish, broader social protection systems in these particular settings will become key in both in terms of, increasing the capacity of communities to adaptation and increasing or enhancing their resilience to all sorts of challenges, including drought, flood, and temperature rises and all of that. I think the key solution to me is to lift up the challenge to a higher level where how do we establish, better social protection systems in these settings, and what is the role of the state, and how is this also organized among different sectors. It's not a challenge that is only left to agriculture, but it could be, I mean, if we're talking about food security, it's pretty much intersectoral issue, right? It concerns agriculture, it concerns health, it concerns education, it concerns finance. So the ability to be able to establish such systems becomes key in my perspective.
Very good. Yeah, definitely. Social protection and social safety nets are very important when talking about food insecurity, and they must be in place because the challenge won't go away. So how to take care of those who are suffering from it, whether it's because they lose their income or because they lose or they don't have their harvest is failing or whatever. So Knut Andreas, could you tell a bit more about how you're working in Caritas, and also look forward a bit? Our general discussion is is going towards an end, and we'll open up for questions towards the end. So we have some more rounds among us, and then we'll have questions from the audience. But Knut Andreas, if you could enlighten us a bit more.
Yeah, well, we have different approaches on how to work, depending if it's a long-term development project or a humanitarian project. If it's humanitarian, it's more pinpoint. We use a lot of the cash engagement and voucher systems as well. Some food distribution, but not as much. We try to reduce that as much as possible to give greater control over the means to the target groups. And we also do some kitchen gardens also in the humanitarian context, so that the IDPs are able to grow their own food locally. In terms of long-term interventions that we have, it's to increase production, to increase access to markets, and also to strengthen local organizations. So we in Caritas, we're not an implementing actor. So we support the local structures of the Caritas and their local partners to implement programs. We're a strong believer that you should strengthen the local institutions more than enter as an international organizations into a country. And the intervention that we have in agriculture, it's not that complex really. It's quite simple means in terms of using basic agricultural or agroecological concepts introduced into that context. In terms of how to sow the plants, in terms of the spacing, use of mechanizations, and use of meteorological advice and information to the farmers. In terms of providing quality seeds and using seed multiplication, so you have sustainability of the distribution of seeds. In terms of irrigation systems, retention of water, and when there is flooding. Priming of seeds, reduce kind of the field time for the plants to reduce the risks of farming. Those kind of simple means that are not that are not being used, but that's fully potential to be used. We reach
so what
about
is the potential?
12,000.
How far?
Right?
Sorry, how far does it take you to? You say you use quite simple methods, but how big is the impact? Would you
It's
say that you
quite
could
big,
solve
quite
the
big. So
problem
we're able
by?
to double or triple production with those small inputs. So that is quite good.
So why don't more people use them?
Yeah, we have a target group of about 12,000 farmer households. So with the big families, that means a population of around 80,000 people that benefit from those projects, from the long-term development projects. And we now, from the last report, register that some 82% of that target group now have 2 to 3 meals a day, which is an increase of about 40% from the beginning of the project only 2 years ago. So it definitely has an impact. In terms of income generation, it also has been increasing, but this last year has been terrible with the COVID. So a lot of the gains that we had, it's been more or less eradicated, and that also eliminates much of the resources that the farmers were able to save, and now to spend them this last year. So that was kind of an external shock that we didn't plan for, that came, but that has had an effect on the program.
So when you say that these rather simple interventions are so effective in increasing production and improving food security for the rural farmers, how can this be multiplied? How can it be taught to other regions and other farmers where you are not working, or your partner organizations are not working? How to spread these effective techniques? Do you have a suggestion for that? What should be done?
It's also a political priority. What we do is we work through the lead farmer system. So we engage with some farmers, and they multiply to more farmers in the region. That's how we're able to reach so many people. We're working with the farmers' organizations or associations where they are, and also to scale up the project. Agriculture needs to be in the forefront of the development into that region, and it is not today. So that is something that can definitely be improved, but there has to be a political will to do it.
Thank you. So, Abdraman, what would you recommend the politicians to do? How can the situation be improved for the food security situation be improved in Western Africa? Just a short, we only have a few minutes before we go to the other questions.
One thing I will recommend is to be not dependent of rainfall. So to do so, we need to develop irrigation agriculture. And that is one thing we are working on in our projects, to make people not doing only agriculture based on rainfall, but also developing agriculture based on irrigation. And so the government should, for this purpose, develop irrigation program throughout or the country where it is possible. And I think it is possible everywhere to develop forage and things like that. That is a first thing. The second thing I'll be talking about is to, I don't know if the situation will be going on a good side. I would recommend also to the government to try to promote short cycle crops to face rainfall decrease. These short cycle crops, even short cycle livestock, are solution to maintain the level of production, because rain even if the rainfall is not at the level we expect, but so people could harvest and continue to have production. That is the two recommendations I will make.
Thank you so much. What about Josephine? What the recommendations would you make to politicians?
I would like to see government come through with a commitment of the Maputo. And doing that is to use the opportunity, and knowing that agriculture provides thousands of jobs, millions of jobs, and will help build our economy. They should look into the budget and support agriculture. It's their responsibility to make sure that the people eat and have good food, because country with food insecurity will never have peace. And for what we have been through, it's time for us to focus on agriculture and make it vibrant to develop our economy and develop our young people, creating jobs for our rural inhabitants.
Thank you. Tewodros, what would you recommend politicians to do from your perspective?
I think in my perspective, from the side of the government, I think governments in the region should aspire to really establish better social protection systems that encompasses both different sectors, including agriculture, health, and education, in particular, to minimize the effects of food security and its implications in broader areas, including education. And I think also the solutions, as Knut Andreas is mentioning, it doesn't have to be also highly complicated, right? Simple solutions goes a long way. What we've seen in Burkina Faso, for instance, when it comes to the challenge of food security and its implications on education, we see communities being mobilized, parents, associations within the communities coming together, contributing with the produces that they have and cooking together and providing meals to children. This kind of solutions goes a long way. So I think one thing, there is also a sort of a technological orientations to addressing some of the limitations of agricultural production. But at the same time, I think also it's important to think about social innovations in terms of community mobilization, increasing participation of communities, ownership. I think the role of the state and the authorities should be also to create enabling and conducive environments for participation of communities to own their lives and processes. I think these are important recommendations, if you will, from that I can think of.
Thank you, very important. And it also goes hand in hand with what we hear from Abdraman that you're doing, and also the other speakers, that they do engage the social communities, so that the governments can support this, but it's also possible to do it more bottom up and have social mobilization. And that is also very much in line with the human rights thinking to empower the population. Knut Andreas, what would you recommend? What would you see, both from governments in the south, but also from the Norwegian government, for instance?
In terms of human rights, or?
No, I asked you more in general. What would you like to see from governments, both in the south, but also more specifically from the Norwegian government, if you could have a ask from them?
Yeah, now, as we're mentioning as well, kind of a higher focus on the agricultural sector. We'd like to see that, to have a larger share of the budgets. Also, such a big share of the population depends on agriculture. So that's really a sector to invest in. Most people are employed in the sector, and it provides a lot of the values in society. And working on in terms of simple solution for sustainable farming and self-sustaining farming is one thing, but also to work on the value chains and working on the food systems in the countries. not to be dependent on imports, for example, which should not be necessary at all. To work also on those elements of it. I really like the example of creating businesses around different parts of the value chain that's being done in terms of the fertilizers and the like, which is of great value. So to invest in those kinds of initiatives would be very valuable. Also in terms of education, to have educational systems and types of education that actually is directed towards creating jobs. So focus also on vocational education to a larger degree, which is more practical and can be used right away to respond to the needs in society. So there are different ways to approach it, but I think kind of to focus on the larger food system area, that would be a great benefit for development.
Yeah, because we both hear from Josephine that young people they migrate to towns. They don't want to maybe work in agriculture, but at the same time we know there is pressure on agriculture, so there has to be other working opportunities for the young ones or the adolescents. Josephine, I see your computer will soon go off. I would like to ask you, what you work with the farmers corporations, so do they want to participate more in the global market, or are they is it the regional market that they are focusing on?
We are focusing on the regional market because the regional market is a huge population in Africa, because it's very difficult with the global market getting certification, especially the European Union. So we are focusing on the regional market and also focusing on the national market, adding value to our produce and sell it locally and regionally.
Yeah, and you get access to other countries in the region.
Yes, and just recently we signed a free trade agreement for Africa. So we hope that will work out for every country having the free trade and get our goods to market right here in Africa. Until we get enough for ourselves, then we can talk about export in the foreign markets. Yeah.
What about in Senegal? Are you producing food and products mainly for the local or for the regional market, or is there export to the global market, Abdraman?
So we are trying to first of all to satisfy the needs of the local market, because the crops that are consumed in Senegal, the most consumed crop is rice, and around 60% of the rice consumed in Senegal is from outside the country. So there is a governmental program to fix this issue and to make the rice producers be able to feed the country before trying. But it depends on the crops. There is some crops that are grown to be exported. For example, fruits like mango, like oranges are most of the time for exportation, but cereals and horticulture products are for local consumption. And currently, we are focusing on trying to satisfy the local demand in high value crops before trying to export it.
Okay, yeah. So I guess most of those that are exporting are also larger, maybe more industrialized producers, and then you have the smallholders who will struggle to feed themselves. Okay.
But even at the local level, there is business. Business could be developed at any level. People that are commercializing foods at the local level are doing business. And I know some people who yearly can get around $500,000 only by commercializing food in the country instead of out of the country.
Yeah, we have had some questions coming in. I've already asked a few of them. I was also wondering about, we talk about a global pandemic of COVID-19, but there is and there we talk about the big challenge of climate change, but there is one global pandemic that is also often mentioned now, and that is of overweight and obesity. And that is the other side of the coin when talking about malnutrition. So you have undernutrition, and then you have overweight and obesity, and that is a challenge that touches all countries and all regions in the world. So is this something that you experience in your countries, and does it have any awareness among people? Abdraman in Senegal, is there any talk about that?
Yeah. We had about around 8 months during 8 months we were living with a corona pandemic, and I could say that it was both an issue and opportunity for us. It was an issue because because of the corona pandemic, our field agent was not able to stay in the field. They was obliged to go their home for security issue. And so the mobilization, the trainings, the facilitation activities we need to undertake we were not able to do this activity. But in our intervention, we developed what we call local resource person and entities that are groups or individuals we train to be able to facilitate other people. And other organization we develop, we base our intervention on to be kind of relay in the community to make facilitation after the intervention of the project. So we took opportunity of the existence of this local resource person and institution to mobilize them and to get them involved into COVID pandemic prevention. And I may recognize that they did a very, very, very good job. They mobilized people, mainly women, for sanitation activities, for hygiene development activities, hand washing activities. And I could say that because of the corona pandemic issue, for example, we achieve some of the targets we have about the hygiene and the hand washing results. This dynamic is still continuing currently.
Okay, yeah. I thank you so much. We can talk more about the challenges of overweight and obesity at a later stage, because it is high on the agenda. It is there are several global processes going on now that are working on developing in the Committee on World Food Security. The countries are these days sitting and developing voluntary guidelines on food systems and nutrition, and they look at both sides of the coin, both undernutrition and overweight and obesity. We see Africa is being overflooded with marketing of soft drinks and so on. So I think it's it's worthwhile to think about that part of the issue as well. But now we are approaching the end, dear panelists. You have done a great job, and I would like to give the word over to Ingvild, who will close this seminar.
Thank you. So time is running out, and it's time for me to just say thank you to everyone who joined us today. I'm very happy that you were all able to rejoin despite the technical problems we had at the start. So thank you for your patience with that. And then I just want to extend a special thanks to our panel and our moderator. I am so grateful that you agreed to join us and share from your vast knowledge. So thank you so much. And a huge thanks also to all of you who joined in the audience. I hope you have all gained some new insights today, and perhaps a renewed understanding of the interconnections between climate change and food security, and what the situation is like in some places in West Africa. So I also wanted to mention that if anyone wants to be engaged in the Norwegian Council for Africa or in the climate group, you're welcome to get in touch, and you can find all the information at fellesrådet.no. I'll post a link in the chat. Either way, thank you so much for your participation today. We hope to see you again at future events. And take care, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
everybody.
Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye.
Au revoir.